Global National begins tonight with what the Democrats have been chomping at the bit for. After days of relentless ballot counting, Joe Biden will officially become the 46th president of the United States. Many Biden supporters hit the streets to celebrate, and one crowd in New York wasted no time bidding farewell to Donald Trump. But the Republicans aren't in any rush to leave. And Trump, who was golfing this morning before he officially lost, refuses to concede. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. It's been an election like no other, and what a week it has been. Joe Biden can finally take on the role he's been coveting for decades, the President of the United States. The key to his win? Pennsylvania and Nevada. He surpassed the 270 electoral votes to win the White House with 290. Biden has long been keeping an eye on the prize. He first launched his bid for the White House in 1987. He got as far as vice president for 2 terms. Now, come January, he will be sworn in as the 46th president. But Donald Trump isn't going gently into the night. His legal team is looking at all options to keep him in office. We'll get to that in a moment. But first, let's go to Global's Farah Nasser. Now, Farah, you've been in Washington all week for this election. What's the mood like on the streets in the Capitol?
Robin, we've been here for 10 days and it's felt pretty sleepy. But today, it was like a pressure valve was released on this city full of Democrats. People were honking their horns, popping champagne. One African-American man told me, "Finally, I can breathe." Now, it took a while to get to this point, and in a few hours, we're going to be hearing from the new president-elect. Jennifer Johnson reports.
It is now official. Joe Biden is America's president-elect. Biden has spent days appealing for calm after a long, anxious wait.
We have to put the anger and the demonization behind us. It's time for us to come together as a nation to heal. It's not going to be easy, but we have to try.
Hundreds celebrated outside the White House, which was walled off before the election. President Trump had left to go golfing. Biden supporters cheered and danced in the streets across the country.
We're so excited. We're so excited. America spoke. We won. We won.
Every vote counted. We believed in our hearts that Biden was best for the United States.
Before noon Saturday, Biden officially won Pennsylvania. That state's electoral votes pushed him over the needed 270 mark to clinch the election.
They've given us a mandate for action on COVID, the economy, climate change, systemic racism. They made it clear they want the country to come together, not continue to pull apart.
This is a history-making moment for Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, who has become the first woman and first person of Black and South Asian descent to become vice president.
We did it. We did it, Joe. You're going to be the next president of the United States.
Millions demanded change over chaos, but the election was close and many Trump supporters are angry. Joe Biden's job to heal the country has just begun. This election was remarkable for a number of reasons, but one fact stands out. Over 74 million Americans voted for the Biden-Harris team, more than any other presidential ticket in U.S. history. Jennifer Johnson, Global News, Washington.
Let's bring in our Washington bureau chief, Jackson Prosco now. Jackson, while there's jubilation on the streets of America and major cities, there's also a tinge of doubt. What are the signals that this isn't going to be a smooth transition?
Well, first and foremost, the president's own words, Farah. I mean, the fact that he is refusing to concede the election at this point, defying tradition that when a winner is essentially proclaimed, you call and concede. Trump hasn't done that yet, and there's no indication of if or when he might actually do that. And we're 74 days out from the inauguration, and I think the question is first and foremost, when does reality strike Trump that he will be leaving the White House? And secondly, how does he act in that time period? Does he work with the incoming Biden administration to make things easier, or does he throw up roadblocks? Does he create chaos along the way? And then what about the pressing matters facing the country? The pandemic, for example, which is surging to awful new records in deaths and cases and hospitalizations. Does he care to manage that, or does he leave a mess for Joe Biden to clean up? Farah, those are all questions that we just don't have the answers to yet.
Certainly. Now, some will argue that America has always been divided, Jackson, but Trump did exacerbate those differences. So what legacy does he leave with Trumpism? Remember that, more than 70 million people voted for him.
Well, this is the tricky dance that Republicans find themselves in right now. They're not exactly rushing to back the president's baseless claims that the election was stolen from him through some sort of massless fraud. But they're also not exactly, rushing out there to congratulate Joe Biden either. And the longer they wait to simply acknowledge the natural process that we're in now, where Donald Trump is leaving the White House, the harder it's going to be for Republicans to rein in those 70 million Trump supporters, especially the die-hard ones, and start planning for any sort of post-Trump era. In other words, if they don't deliver that reality check right now, if they don't indicate that this election was legitimate, there are going to be a lot of angry Trump supporters who are getting more and more fired up by the day as the president keeps tweeting out these claims and tries to make this false claim for fraud, which just isn't materializing. And maybe that's the natural conclusion here, Farah. Maybe when the fraud claims officially have not materialized, it will be over. We just don't know right now, and that's why Republican silence is so deafening right now.
In some ways, Jackson, this isn't the victory that the Democrats envisioned when it comes to the other branches of government. So how is that going to complicate things?
Well, it all comes down to Georgia in January. A dual runoff for the Senate will determine whether or not Democrats control the Senate. If they do, it helps them push ahead with their big plans. If they don't, it's all about compromise. To Joe Biden's credit, he has painted himself as the compromise candidate willing to work with both sides.
Okay, Jackson, move on reporting from Donald Trump to reporting on Joe Biden. Thanks for your analysis. That is our Washington Bureau Chief, Jackson Prosco. And now for the rest of our America Votes 2020 coverage, let's go over to Robin at our Global National News Desk. Robin.
All right, thanks for that, Farah. Biden is the next commander-in-chief, but his path to the presidency isn't expected to be easy. Trump and his team are vowing to fight the election results, and there are tens of millions of Americans who voted for Trump and still support him. Mike Armstrong has more on the problems Biden now has on his plate.
That is unheard of. It's illegal.
Donald Trump's legal team promised to keep up the fight with a press conference held outside a landscaping company. It appears no one told them before they went out the networks had called the election for Joe Biden.
Who was it called by? Oh my goodness, all the networks. Wow. All the networks.
Now, it also doesn't appear the president is conceding. Before going to the golf course Saturday morning, he tweeted out, quote, "I won this election by a lot." The Trump campaign says it will launch a series of lawsuits starting Monday, apparently in several states. They insist their poll observers were kept too far away from seeing the work of poll counters, making those ballots illegitimate. How many are they suggesting? Well, here in Pennsylvania, everything counted after Election Day.
Gee, just about the 700,000 votes that President Trump was ahead by 2 days ago, that disappeared.
Now, Trump's lawyers are not presenting actual proof of systemic fraud or anything widespread, only anecdotal stories about single cases of alleged impropriety or basically violations of transparency. It is very unlikely to have an impact on the results. That doesn't mean Trump supporters aren't pushing for the fight to continue.
There's a lot of questionable things. They shouldn't be calling this election. There's dozens of lawsuits all over the United States right now. They should resolve those up.
My reaction personally is I think it's a little premature. It just sounds like there's going to be multiple states with recounts and an awful lot of litigations.
In Washington, the White House has confirmed Chief of Staff Mark Meadows has tested positive for the coronavirus. Meadows has often appeared without a mask at events. He's even refused to speak to reporters with a mask on.
I'm not going to talk to them.
According to reports, there are 4 or 5 other new cases in the White House as well. Donald Trump still has 74 days as president, and during that time, the response to the coronavirus will still fall to him. This country has struggled during this pandemic. Over the last week, they've averaged more than 100,000 new cases a day, and Sunday they're likely to hit a new milestone, their 10 millionth case of COVID-19. Robin?
Mike Armstrong in Philadelphia. Thanks, Mike. Despite the pandemic, Americans across the country are taking to the streets to celebrate. Michigan delivered an essential state win to make Biden's presidency possible. And that's where we find our Jeff Semple tonight. Jeff, what's the mood like where you are?
Robin, we are here in downtown Detroit, Michigan, and as you can see, it's a bit of a party going on. Some people even dressed up for the occasion. There are about 100 people here who have gathered from across this region to celebrate what they see as a historic victory here. The Democrats claiming the White House and reclaiming their so-called blue wall. The states of Michigan, as well as Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, that handed Trump the keys to the White House back in 2016, but this time are the same states to evict him, going back Democrat blue, thanks in no small part to cities like Detroit. You know, it's interesting when you look at the numbers, not a lot of people switch sides. Joe Biden didn't turn a lot of Republicans, but he turned out a lot of Democrats, especially in urban cities like this one.
We encourage people to get out to vote, and clearly that's what they did.
When I heard the news, I was in my car and I actually cried. It was emotional for me.
Maybe for 4 years we can have normalized relations with Canada again.
So a celebratory atmosphere here, a lot of dancing, but still a lot of lingering trepidation. People here have heard that the president is refusing to concede, not accepting the results of this election, and many of his supporters are following his lead.
I'm worried about the people accepting some of the falsities that Trump is talking about, and I am worried about potential violence.
But the president spent his term sowing distrust in institutions and in the media, and at this critical juncture, many of his supporters say they simply don't trust this election result. Robin?
Jeff Semple in Detroit tonight. Thanks, Jeff. The new administration will obviously have an impact on the Canada-U.S. relationship. The Liberals have been dealing with an unpredictable president for the last 4 years. Abigail Beeman looks at how Biden and Justin Trudeau will make it work. Abigail.
The Prime Minister's office tells us President-elect Joe Biden and Justin Trudeau will speak by phone soon, but it won't happen until sometime after Biden speaks Saturday night. Meanwhile, congratulations are pouring in here north of the border for both Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. In a statement, Justin Trudeau said the Canada-U.S. relationship is unique on the world stage, and he looks forward to working with the new administration as, quote, we tackle the world's greatest challenges together. Trudeau included COVID-19, climate action, and economic prosperity on that list. Those are all areas to watch as the new U.S.-Canada relationship develops. Biden will be more aligned with Trudeau than Trump was on the climate file, but that poses an issue for the Keystone XL pipeline, which Biden vows to block. Trade was particularly volatile under Trump. Remember the NAFTA drama and tariffs on aluminum and steel. A flashpoint in the Trudeau-Trump relationship, June 2018, after Trump came to Canada for the G7 summit and called Trudeau very dishonest and weak, tweeting about more tariffs. Experts are expecting relief from punitive tariffs, but that doesn't mean smooth sailing.
If you have gone through Joe Biden's policy program, there is a great deal of friction being introduced in the free trade regime.
Aaron Ettinger is an expert in both U.S. and Canadian foreign policy. He points to the protectionist angle in Biden's platform, including reinvestments in infrastructure that focus on a Buy American plan.
This has different effects on different sectors of Canada's economy. Managing that bilaterally is going to require a ton of diplomatic energy.
In their congratulatory messages, the Green and NDP leaders, as well as the Deputy Prime Minister, highlighted the historic nature of Harris's win as the first woman and the first Black and South Asian person to become vice president. Chrystia Freeland tweeted about working together to, quote, crush this global pandemic and to crack more glass ceilings along the way. Abigail Beeman, Global News, Ottawa.
World leaders are also reacting tonight. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson sent out a tweet congratulating Biden and Harris, saying he's looking forward to working closely together on shared priorities. Germany's Chancellor Angela Merkel wished Biden the best of luck and every success, and congratulated Harris on becoming the first female vice president-elect in American history. And France's President Emmanuel Macron posted this message saying, "We have a lot to do to overcome today's challenges. Let's work together." Coming up, the COVID clampdown in BC. Tough measures in a province that thought it had the virus under control. Turning now to the pandemic. Cases are surging. There are now more than 35,000 active cases of COVID-19 in Canada. Today, Ontario hit another daily record with more than 1,100 cases in 24 hours. And the situation in Quebec is even worse. Health officials there reported another 1,200 cases and 28 deaths. In BC, that province is introducing new restrictions today after another 567 cases were reported today. New public orders go into effect as of 10 p.m. tonight. For the next 2 weeks, social gatherings are not allowed. Visiting another household is banned. Fitness classes are canceled. All workplaces will be required to conduct active in-person screening for COVID-19.
There are to be no social gatherings of any size with anyone other than your immediate household. Be especially vigilant in small office spaces, in break rooms and kitchens. This will give us a chance to stop the transmission, to have a break in that rising transmission rate that we are seeing.
Still ahead, why Canadians are hesitant when it comes to a coronavirus vaccine. The solution to the pandemic, a COVID-19 vaccine, could be mere months away. But pharmaceutical companies still have to get approval from Health Canada. And some Canadians are hesitating on whether they'll actually take it. As Carolyn Jarvis reports, it's the speed of development that's proving to be most important and for some, most concerning.
Could be first in line, I would, yes.
Phase 3 trial, sign me up. No.
There are usually mistakes when you typically rush things in general.
Across the country, Canadians are polarized on whether they'll take a COVID-19 vaccine once it's ready.
Talking about getting a vaccine out in 2021, that is unparalleled in anything that's happened before in vaccine history.
Ipsos polling on behalf of Global News shows a little more than half, 54% of people agreed that they would take a COVID-19 vaccine as soon as it's approved. 61% of Canadians believe a vaccine should be mandatory, but there is some hesitation. When asked about concerns over long-term side effects, 82% of us prefer to wait for reports that the vaccine is safe and effective before taking it.
The situation is analogous when seatbelts were introduced in cars. People said, oh, seatbelts are dangerous. What if I crashed into a creek and couldn't get out and drowned? And it took a while for people to see, oh, lives are being saved by wearing seatbelts, and gradually they were more and more adopted. So these things do take a little bit of time.
Before any vaccine is released to the public, it will undergo a rigorous approval process by Health Canada.
What I want to say is that I will get the vaccine when it's authorized and when it's my time. I have absolute confidence in the Health Canada regulatory review process, and Health Canada will not authorize a vaccine if it should not be released out for Canadians.
Canada has signed agreements with the manufacturers of 7 different vaccine candidates, including Sanofi Pasteur, which is working on a vaccine in partnership with GlaxoSmithKline. It says the same steps are being followed as with any other vaccine.
We're not cutting corner, otherwise the vaccine would already be available now.
What's important now, say those who have studied vaccine hesitancy, is a robust messaging campaign to share the data with Canadians so they're informed to make their own decision.
There's a saying in vaccination, it's not vaccines that save lives, it's vaccination. A vaccine that remains in a vial is 100% safe, but 0% effective.
Carolyn Jarvis, Global News, Toronto. And you can watch more on The New Reality tonight with Donna Friesen, starting at 7 p.m. in most markets and at 9 p.m. in Alberta. Up next, Biden's right-hand woman, how Kamala Harris can shape American politics in the role of VP. It's quite the moment for America with a new administration. Take the job of vice president. Kamala Harris is set to become the first woman and first person of Black and South Asian descent to be elected to that role in the U.S. As Eric Sorensen explains, the California senator says the victory is about the soul of America and that the work has only just begun.
We are here!
It is a breakthrough more than 200 years in the making. Kamala Harris, the first woman who is also the first Black and South Asian female to be voted Vice President of the United States. A phone call with the boss captured the moment.
We did it, Joe. You're going to be the next president of the United States.
And 56-year-old Kamala Harris will be by his side.
To have someone like her, of her intelligence and depth and her background in the White House, it's a good day for America.
A former high schooler in Montreal, a groundbreaking district attorney in California, and a tough-as-nails senator, Harris clashed with Biden during her presidential run, but she was always seen as Biden's likeliest pick for VP. After a summer of unrest over racial injustice, Harris was Biden's choice.
As you all know, is smart, she's tough, she's experienced, she's a proven fighter.
Opposite the oldest president in history, Harris is expected to be an active VP. She will inject youth, energy, and passion in the White House.
We have a chance to choose a better future for our country.
The role of vice president is often viewed as symbolic more than substantive. But as the first female after 48 male vice presidents, the symbolism will carry the weight of expectations and history.
Today is a day that many of us have been waiting for 4 years. Who would have known we were this patient?
And it's possible more history lies ahead. In the last 60 years, 5 vice presidents, if you include Biden, have gone on to serve as president of the United States. Eric Sorensen, Global News.
And that is Global National for this Saturday. I'm Robin Gill. Tonight we leave you with the celebrations across America for Joe Biden, who has been declared the 46th President of the United States after beating Donald Trump. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you here tomorrow. Have a great night.